All right, guys, today is the day that a 56 Chevy car is getting ready to lose its chassis, so hopefully. Today is Friday, August 11th, 2023. It's pretty early in the morning, so I'm getting ready to get my day started. It is, it's not super hot right now, but it is already kind of hot. But I have jeans on and a regular t-shirt because I'm going to be climbing underneath the car, removing body mounts and bolts and all that stuff, and I did not want to do that in a tank top and shorts. So I'm wanting to get everything pretty well stripped out the best I can to where it's ready to come off, and then I'll probably go in and change clothes because by then it'll be super hot. So the project today is to remove the body from the chassis. There's quite a bit of stuff that I'll need to do. I got to remove the bumper brackets off the frame up here. I got to remove this old engine mount. All these old brake lines have got to come off. I got to take the steering box off. These steering boxes on these Tri-5 Chevys, the shaft that comes out of it that goes all the way up for your steering wheel to bolt on, that's all one piece. So you have to pull the box and the shaft and everything all out together. So I'll have to remove the column, and you can bet these bolts are not going to be fun to mess with, so I might as well get the penetrating spray out and just start going crazy. I got to get all the control arm stuff off, and the spindle, coil spring, shocks, all that stuff out, or this shock. Nothing's on that side, but everything was on this side except the hub. I thought when he was telling me about it, I thought it just had one A-arm, but it's one whole side that's mostly complete. I got to get the idler arm off the frame, and I'm going to have to remove a few things off of this frame once I get the body off of it. Steve's car has a 700R4 automatic overdrive, so these have to be removed. These are the original 2-speed power glide or 3-speed standard transmission mounts. So I've got to remove all these off the frame. I'm going to remove this pivot right here, and then there's a little piece right here I'm going to remove off the chassis because they don't need to be on here. And I'll probably remove the original bracket up underneath at the rear of the frame for the factory exhaust bracket, because he's going to have a custom dual exhaust system. That's probably about it. Now I do know for sure on Steve's car that, I can't remember which side it is, one of these is stripped out. And you guys always want to check these on your Tri-5s. This little bracket right here, a lot of times these get stripped out, and when you go to put your lower splash apron bolt in, it just pops and then spins again. It won't ever tighten. So check that before you paint your chassis, because you may have to fix that. I usually go in there and just flap wheel that down flat, and then I'll weld a nut there, a 1/4 by 20 nut. So I'll change it out to a 1/4 by 20 bolt instead of that old coarse thread number 12 or whatever the bolt that is that the factory used. So I'm hoping all the body mounts break off, because I don't want to sit under there, you know, trying to spend hours trying to get the body mounts out. So I am going to use my air powered impact gun and hopefully just snap them right off. That's kind of the plan anyway. So I tell you what I think I might do first, since it's going to be pretty nice to get to. I kind of want this body out of the way today, so I think I'm going to go ahead and try to remove the spot welds out of these brackets, or these plates in the floor. Underneath this plate is a smaller thick plate. It has a square hole in it for a carriage bolt. That's for your gas tank mounting, and all that stuff has been modified on Steve's car. They welded the holes up and everything, and it's a square hole for a carriage bolt. So I'm going to drill the spot welds, remove these plates, drill the spot welds, and remove the plates under there, and transfer those over. Actually, it looks like the corner of this one's rotted off. Steve's plate on this side is still pretty good. It's still on the car, so I might just not use this bracket, but I'll use the bracket underneath that. So that's a plan. New plan. Already into a new plan here. So I am going to get started. Yay. Alright, so I drilled all the spot welds out of the plate in the floor. It came out pretty nice without tearing it all to pieces, so I'll be able to clean that up, blast it, prime it, and put it back in. So now I need this plate right here that's underneath the floor. So let's do a little archaeology here, see what we can find. So it has two little fold over tabs here to lock the carriage bolt down. Gas tank straps are still in the car, so those bolts, I'll never get that nut off there, so I'll have to cut that bolt and the carriage bolt will come up out of there. But there's going to be some spot weld indents in here, and I got to find them so I can drill them out. So I'm going to use a Scotch-It disc, clean the metal up, and see if I can find the indent for the spot weld. Can't even see them. It's gotta be right there somewhere. Can't see these spot welds. Oh. Well, I guess I'll get a wire wheel and clean it up. I know I cleaned the metal up on this bracket here, and I never did see the spot weld indents, so I just air hammered it out of there. Right now I'm going to cut the gas tank strap bolt. Good to use gas tank strap if somebody needs it. Alright, that's a piece I'm after right there. Never noticed that. It almost looks like a bow tie. It's for the fold down tabs for the carriage bolt. So I'll have to grind down these spot weld spots there, and then I'll have to hammer and dolly the flange back flat. But I'll be able to drill 2 holes in here and then plug weld it back in there, and then grind the plug weld tops, and that'll allow the plate to set flat on there. And then I have to go in and place this piece on, and then I'll have to plug weld where all these spot weld holes were, and then go back and grind that smooth. So it's going to be a little bit of a job. So now I need to get this one out. I broke my drill bit off, my only sharp drill bit, I should say, that I was pre-drilling the center of the spot welds with. So I've got this really crappy cheap bit set. If you got about 30 minutes to drill a hole, they work great. This end is kind of rusted up a little bit on that, so I'm kind of debating on whether to even try to save it. I think the one in Steve's car on this side is in better shape. But I have not tried to remove it yet, so it'll be my luck. I'll have to cut this one in half and use his top on this bottom or something stupid because of the hackery that's went on with his car. So I better go ahead and drill the spot welds out of that and remove it, because I may need part of it. I think I might just go over here to the Tractor Supply and get me a new drill bit, because these old ones they're taking way too long. I'm gonna end up killing the battery in my drill there by the time I get it drilled out. So yay. All right guys, when I go to take the center link out on the Tri-5 Chevy, it has a cotter pin down here on the end with this slotted nut right here. I like to use a tire tool, like an old tire tool with the, you know, the flat end on it. I get it in there and gives you a nice handle to use to turn, instead of just trying to use a screwdriver, which screwdriver would work fine on something that wasn't all crusty and greasy and rusted stuck like this stuff on this 56 is, but pretty simple stuff. I don't know if I can even get it to stuff to pull out of there. So if you're redoing your front end on your Tri-5 Chevy and you're still running your manual box, you'll need to buy this part right here new. I'm gonna have to get Steve to get one too, but it has a little seal on there, and it's a dust seal basically, because there's a big gap under it. So that's how thick that seal has to be, a little sponge type seal to keep the dust and dirt out of there from, you know, making its way up in there. But you also want to pull all this stuff out like this. There's going to be another spring and cup in there like that, and you want to inspect these. It's good to clean these up real good with degreaser, and then just go in there and run your finger on it and see if there's any galling or anything, any rough spots. You need to go ahead and buy new ones. These are pretty chewed up. You can see a groove line worn there. It's catching my fingernail, a few of them. These are pretty toasted, so those are no good. Well, walked around here and noticed this. Not a big deal. This is the brake line clamp bracket, basically, and it's supposed to be spot welded to the frame right here. You can see the three little marks right here, but there's a little bitty weld there, which I think is not factory. So I'll have to drill the 3 holes and then plug weld it back on. Not a big deal. This one is actually really crusty looking, so I think I'll take the one off Steve's car and use it. It's a little bit cleaner of a piece probably than this one. I'll start chopping some parts off. Trying to remember what other thing I had to cut. So somebody had taken the outer tie rod nut. It was about halfway up, and it looks like they beat the crap out of it with a hammer trying to knock it through the spindle, and they mushroomed everything and fried it. So I cut it off, so it's the only thing I can do right now. Do I have something on my face? I've been wiping my face with my sleeve because of all the sweat. Look at all the dirt. So most of these body mounts, I'm actually having to cut them off. They are rusted, and I mean, I put penetrating oil on it, but some of the body mounts you can't get to with penetrating oil. So I'm having to actually cut into the head of the bolt underneath. So I'm about halfway down the car right now, and I've still got all the rear to go. This is a huge nightmare. And I knew it was going to be that way. You know, the car's been sitting outside for decades, and it's just, it's always tough to get old rusty crud out. But anyway, I tried to clean up the front of the frame just a little bit, just to kind of get an idea. I'm using a stainless knotted cut brush and then my nylon large cut brush up here. And I'm mainly just trying to see what's underneath, because you know it's kind of difficult to see things in rust and you know all the moss stuff that it had growing on it. But I'm pretty impressed still yet. These are usually ripped out, you know, bent out from people hooking chains in here and pulling cars. They're both good on both sides. Now, this frame rail right here has had a little action at one time or another. There's a hump in it right here. And this is just a little bit wavy right here, and then there's a wave right here. This is kind of supposed to be there, but this is kind of, it just needs a little tweaking. I just cross measured from the center of this rivet to the center of that hole right there on both frame rails, and it's exactly the same. It's 20 inches, I think is what it was, but it's not even a 16th off. It's dead on 20. So that's pretty awesome. Now, this is kind of the same about the way my 4-door 55 frame was. You could tell it had a little action at one time, but I just hammered all this stuff back down. I actually had to cut the horn, just the tip of mine off, and hammer it all out and then put it back, welded it back together because it was just so mangled up. It was the only way to really get it, be able to lay it down on something flat and really work it over. Now this is bent in right here real bad on the frame. This is just bent in, and this metal's really thick, and you can't really access the back of this very well because of this inner brace. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do it today, but I'm going to cut this out right here. I've actually done this before. I'm going to cut this section out with my cutoff wheel, and I'm going to lay it upside down on my vise in there on the flat pad, and I'm going to hammer this all back out flat like it's supposed to be. And then I'll 45-degree edge the piece that I cut out, and then I'll butt weld it back in and grind it. So it'll be nice and, you know, back where it needs to be. But frame's in pretty decent shape, man. I mean, it's just, you know, the studs for the A-arms, these two had been cut off, so I just went ahead and removed what was left in there. The other two are still on there. I think I have a pair of these here. These are knurled, but you know, I'm going to put some factory ones back in there. I think I got a really nice used set in there. I've got a box full of old suspension stuff in there, just little things. And I think I mentioned earlier clip, I need to weld on the brake line bracket. Was broke off of it over there. It was hanging there by the brake line, but the bracket was broke off. So I've got to put it back on. The frame does have some pretty gnarly pitting in it up here. You can see the gnarly pitting in it. So I'm really going to have to blast the front of this real good with my blaster, but I think what I'm going to have Steve do is just buy a gallon of Z-Chrome Rust Defender, and because, you know, it pretty much does everything all in one, and it'll fill all that, and I can block it out real nice. So the front of the frame up here will be really super nice. You know, when the hood's up, you see a majority of it, and I do want it to look good. But I need to get back under there and finish that rear. I've actually changed my jeans twice. my shirt twice because they get soaked and they're heavy. And then I go in the house to get a drink or something, or take my dog out, and it's, you know, really cold in the house because the air conditioner's on, and it's just not a fun time, man. I think it's 97 today. It's not as hot as it usually is, surprising. But man, I cannot believe I'm having to cut most of the body mount bolts out of this thing. This sucks. So I'm gonna get back to it. Well, this one was a challenge from the way I normally do it because it had that cart thing under there. So I had to remove it first. And then I've still got an issue when I go to get it out of here. It's different than what I normally do because there's no rear axle in it. So this is how I take a body off. This is very dangerous and stupid, I know. And sometimes the concrete blocks are laying not the way they're supposed to be because of the way they're stronger when they're laying down, you know. But it's just the way I do it. If you don't like it, don't know what to tell you. I've done many of them here, and I'm going to continue to do them. So I take a 4x4 treated post, run it across. I stick the jack up in the front of the frame here. Have to use a concrete block and blocks of wood. Now this floor is rotted out, so it keeps slipping up in there because it's just peeling the rusty metal away. But when they're solid, you can get them a lot higher. But anyway, I jack the body up off of the frame to where I can get a 4x4 post across the front of it right there. And I've got it right up against the concrete block. So then I've got these blocks laying up lengthways. So what I'll do now is I'll let the jack down. The body will come down on the 4x4 post, and the 4x4s will be basically not on the concrete yet because I need to take this wood off the top of this and put the jack with the concrete block under the 4x4, and that way it'll jack the body and all up, the 4x4 post and all, and then I can stack little blocks of wood on top of the concrete blocks to the bottom of the 4x4 post for spacers. At that point, it'll get it up high enough to where you can get the frame out. Now, the other thing that I already screwed up on, and I'm so hot and exhausted out here from the heat, I don't feel like going through and redoing all this. The car needed to be the other direction because the frame has to go out backwards. But I think I can drag this frame out of here with all of it stripped apart. That frame's pretty light with all the suspension stuff on it, so I think I can drag it out sideways. So that's what I'm going to try to do. If not, I'll have to jack it all back up, flip it around, do all that crap. So anyway, I've got it set up on blocks back here with jack stands, and I only did that because it had a cart under it. But I usually jack up the center of the trunk floor just like I did the front trans hump up there with a concrete block and a block of wood, and then jack the rear of the body up off the frame and slide a 4x4 post right across the back here. So the big problem is this whole rocker's completely rotted away on both sides, so I don't know how this is going to go. This is the rustiest car I've ever messed with. Alright guys, I am done. It's 5 o'clock p.m. My wife should be here any minute. Well, 5:10, 15, but yeah, I got overheated, man. I was getting a little bit dizzy, and I went in the house and just laid down. Then I drank a big thing of water, and then I drank a Gatorade and stayed in there for about 20 minutes in the cool, and I came out and I got all the tools picked up, so I feel a little bit better. I got the chassis out from under it. I just set it down here. So my wife's going to only get half of her carport spot, but she doesn't have to go to work tomorrow, so it's no big deal. We're going to an air show, but I would really rather not go to an air show in 100-degree heat, but she wanted to go, so we're going to go. But I got the chassis out. It's right here. I got my body cart rolled under it, but I'm done, man. I'm overheated, and I don't feel like going through here and moving the jack and, you know, sticking concrete blocks on the jack and trying to get the body raised up enough to put it on the body cart today. So I'm just done. But that's what's going to have to be done, and I can get it down on that cart, and at that point the body will roll around and it'll be out of my way for a bit, I guess. So I had to end up cutting all this out to get to that body mount bolt because it was seized. This one, I actually cut a spot out and I could get the socket down straight on it, and it actually came out, but I had to cut that one. But I would say 90% of the bolts in the body I had to cut off. So it sucked, man. I've never had to cut that many bolts out of a Tri-5, but this is the rustiest Tri-5 Chevy I've ever worked on. They usually are not this bad around here, but this one, you know, sitting for decades with no windows and doors and stuff, it's wasted, man. So if it does fall tonight from the rust, it should land. I pulled that body cart way back there, so if it does fall, it'll land on that cart, and it shouldn't really go that far. But anyway, I just noticed this today. Look at the bottom of this dash, and over there it's completely rotted away. So again, there is nothing on this car worth using except that right there. Thanks for watching.